Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is that you are listening. Folks, thank you very, very much for listening. Today is the 14th of July of our Lord 2025. Welcome to yet another edition of The Coping Hour, hosted by Nicholas Sinkle, a.k.a. Motown Noah. Hey, I have a responsibility as the host of this program to let you know, if I'm able to clock, before the show even starts, that it's going to be one of hashtag those episodes. I do feel like it's my responsibility to tell you that, and I have had it's a bad day here at the household. I'm not doing good. I'm not okay. Not good. Grandma, I will be fine once I go to sleep, wake up in the morning. I'll be okay. Worst case scenario, the next time I call you, I'll be completely fine. Nothing to be overly concerned about. Actually, Grandma, just to make you feel better, I'm in the middle of texting with Matthew right now, which for those who are not my grandma, Matthew is my brother. And he just texted me as I was saying that. So we're chopping it up. Things are totally fine. But I should warn everybody at home, this will be a medium to highly aggressive episode. I might say some things that I don't really mean. I think I'm experiencing a little bit of mania. And normally when that happens, I don't record the show, and instead I shave my head or my face or something like that. And instead I'm doing the show and I'm pushing through it. And I just just want to put everybody on notice. Get your seatbelts on. I don't know if we're going to be doing off-road podcasting today, but we're going to be talking about the president a lot. We're going to be talking about the president of the United States a lot in this episode, and that's where I say I think I may just get a little bit, but okay. I guess maybe we'll just jump right into it. So, look, I'm taping this on the 1-year anniversary of Donald Trump almost getting his head blown off on TV, on live television a year ago right now. Well, not right now, but depending on when you're listening to this. A year ago today, Donald John Trump was running for a re-election, hoping to secure his second term against, at the time, Joe Biden, before he eventually dropped out of the race and Kamala replaced him. He was in Butler, Pennsylvania, and, the thing about this that really gets swept under the rug is that moments before these shots started ringing out from Thomas Crooks, who we will be focusing on in this segment, Trump almost delivered the funniest last words that any political figure has ever delivered ever. So he was just kind of in the middle of his usual spiel, talking. I don't even remember what he was talking about. He was probably talking about immigrants or something like that, how they're destroying the country, and everybody was eating it up. And he goes, and if you really want to see something that's sad, shot, 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 shot. His last words, for real, were almost, and if you really want to see something sad, and then his head almost got blown off of his fucking body. Could you have imagined, what that would do to our brains for the rest of our life? It's one thing to, have the Zapruder film exist, and if you really want to, you can watch John Fitzgerald Kennedy get his head blown off. You can watch it in VR. You can watch it restored in 4K. You can watch it in AR. There's so many different mediums that you can watch that in. But it's one angle, right? And the difference is that wasn't live when that happened. People around I don't want to say around the world, people around the country were watching this rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. And if you really want to see something that's sad, bam, gone. When JFK got killed, his last words were, "They sure do." And that was in response to Governor Connolly, who was sitting right in front of him. So I'll do a little POV really quick. So if I'm Governor Connolly, this is, I guess, more of a visual gag that I'm doing here. So if you're not watching today's episode, you don't really get the full effect of what I'm doing here. If you're listening to this on Spotify, maybe switch over to video for a second. So if I'm Governor Connolly and I'm in the front seat, the front passenger seat of this vehicle, essentially this is how it played out. So Connolly was back here. He's da-da-da, wow, what a cool parade this is. And he turns around at JFK. He goes, "They sure do love you in Texas, don't they, Mr. President?" And JFK goes, "They sure do." And then it's a little bit unclear what the timeline was if it was like immediately after that. Those were the last words that he spoke. And then immediately after that, Jackie Onassis was wearing his brain matter. Like it was an outfit at the Met Gala. Oh my gosh, Jackie Onassis. Or your preferred nomenclature at this point would be Jackie Kennedy. Like, wow, fashion icon. You're at the Met. Who are you wearing today? I'm actually wearing the 36th president of the United States brain matter today. So those were his last words. Donald Trump's for real were almost, and if you really want to see something that's sad, and I just really think that gets brushed under the rug. Now we do kind of talk about this as a thing that happened maybe like once a month or once every other month since it actually did happen a year ago. And what we always bring up is that the kid who tried to kill the president, well, the soon-to-be president of the United States and former president, the 45th president of the United States, Donald John Trump, it's weird that we don't know anything about that guy. We always talk about that on the show, that it's weird that we don't know anything about him, because when Kennedy got killed, obviously the way that people consumed information 62 years ago is vastly different. It's a completely different universe than the way that they do it today. And the way that information travels is a different thing, right? Like there weren't as many, you didn't have as much information at your disposal. And like, if you were really seeking something out, it was like you could listen to Walter Cronkite on the news, or you could read the newspaper, and that was basically it. Whereas in like 2024, when this actually happened, or 2025, however you want to frame this, I can go anywhere on the internet and I can find like a different perspective or like a different publication reporting on this, right? And I'm going to find a ton of different information. But even when Kennedy was killed, like, sure, it took a while for people to find out that he was in Russia, and talking specifically about Lee Harvey Oswald, right? It took us a while to figure out that, oh, he was in Russia, and oh, he was in Mexico, and like all of this stuff. He was ordering weapons from Illinois and getting them sent down to Texas, and like all the different nuances of like how this was like meticulously planned. That took a while to come out because a lot of the information was classified, and so, as time goes on and information gets like unredacted or unclassified, like we found stuff out about that then. But they were very quickly on the whole, like, this guy was a communist sympathizer, like, narrative, right? Because this was at the height of America's Red Scare, and that was the easiest thing to, put a stamp on. We also, Jack Ruby was, like, a known guy pretty soon thereafter, the guy who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, like, a day after Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK. So people knew about Harvey Oswald, and people knew about Jack Ruby. I just think it's weird that if you ask most people what was the name, you don't have to know anything about him, but like, what was the name of the kid that tried to kill Trump? I don't think the average person, if you go like man on the street, TikTok, like gay son or thought daughter style in front of people, you're like, what was the name of that guy? Name that guy. I will give you $100. How many people are you going to have to go through before somebody knows the name? 50? Maybe. It's just kind of a thing that happened, and then we didn't know that much about him. So I am actually going somewhere with this, believe it or not. I'm not just repeating myself for the 100th time. The day that I'm taping this, the Washington Post put out a story a little under 24 hours ago. Not a big Washington Post guy. I think anything that's owned by Jeff Bezos is going to have some sort of a slant, right? But they dumped more information in this story and the investigation leading up to these events and post this event than we have ever heard, ever, period. And I don't really know how to cover it without just like reading it to you. Like, we don't like to read on this show. That's not really what we do. It's not a fucking book club, bro. But I there's no way for me to just like make bullet points on this. So I guess I'm just going to read you the story, and I'm just going to sort of add my own little commentary and maybe add some like historical context, or like not historical context, but like context of like things that were happening at the time, maybe while we're reading it. So from the Washington Post, the name of the article, "The Lingering Mystery of the Trump Shooting. Why did this young man do it?" After a probe that included searching for possible links to Iran, investigators say the shooter acted alone, and not in the service of any politics or ideology. A year ago, when he tried to assassinate Donald Trump. On the morning of Sunday, July 14th, just 16 hours after a gunman tried to kill Donald Trump, top officials gathered in the White House Situation Room to brief President Joe Biden on what the FBI knew about the would-be assassin. Could Iran be behind this plot to murder the former president? Biden asked. I'm going to break it right there, and I'll add some. This is so interesting that within the first, 10 sentences of this story, they're already doing the Iran thing. Now, as we'll go on, you'll see that, Iran had fucking nothing to do with this. But the only reason that it's interesting to me is because we talked a little bit about the Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz podcast that came out a couple of weeks ago at this point. And one of the things that Ted Cruz kind of kept talking about in there was that Iran was trying to kill Donald Trump. That narrative kept getting thrown out there. And it's not really one that is accepted by the zeitgeist here in America. It's one that is thrown out there by the people who you perceive to be crackpots, right? Like an Alex Jones type character is the one who has thrown some shit out there before about that. This was Iran. This was Iran's doing. There are Iranian hitmen in the United States who are recruiting American citizens to carry out political assassinations in exchange for $1 million, right? And I just think it's interesting that those are the only people that you hear this from, but then the Washington Post comes out swinging immediately. Look, if Biden asked that question, then maybe it's not that crazy. Maybe it's not. But it just really messed with my brain a little bit. So let's get back to it. Attorney General Merrick Garland and the FBI Director Christopher A. Wray told Biden that they were indeed concerned Iran may have had recruited the man who fired at Trump during his rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. According to 3 people with knowledge of the briefing, hours earlier, in fact, FBI agents had rushed to Texas in the middle of the night to interview an alleged Iranian operative the Bureau had arrested on Friday on suspicion of recruiting hitmen to kill United States politicians. Let's see, how can I speed up here? This account reveals previously unreported details about the urgent efforts to find any possible Iranian connection. Though after months of investigation and extraordinary steps, the Bureau ultimately concluded there was none and determined what motivated the shooter. A year later, largely by process of elimination, investigators have concluded that Thomas Matthew Crooks acted alone. Crooks left no writings explaining his actions, but officials said he fit a profile of assassins the Bureau has studied. Socially isolated, educated, but friendless, motivated not by politics or ideology, but by a sense of insignificance and a desire to become known. He was fatally shot by a Secret Service counter-sniper after he wounded Trump and killed rally attendee Corey Compatore. Now, I want to break it right there for a second, too. Because the only things that we've ever known about this kid, the information has come second or third hand. From people who kind of knew him a little bit. I guess that would be first or second hand, not second or third hand. It was people who were interviewed on the news that went to high school with him or kind of knew him a little bit. And I also think it's interesting that they say here that the FBI, largely by process of elimination, concluded that Thomas Matthew Crooks acted alone. Which is kind of where I've always been on the whole thing. It's so easy to say that it was a bad hit by the Democrats. I just think that's so easy, and that just is so, I don't want to say it's boring, but, of course people who voted for Donald Trump are going to say, this was the Dems, this was Nancy Pelosi, they were trying to get their lick back because that guy broke into Paul Pelosi's house and tried to beat him with a hammer. It's yeah, I don't really know what this is. What I had said at the time, and I think a year later, this is what I still believe, is to me, that just, you're erasing the possibility that it's inconceivable that somebody just wanted to kill Donald Trump. It's not that crazy to think about. I'm not condoning it. I'm not endorsing it. And I don't think that I'm just saying this so that I don't get a fucking knock on my door. I don't think anybody should feel emboldened to kill the president of the United States, right? But we went through 4 years of his first term We went through January 6th. We went through like election denial. And I don't know, like the idea, the prospect of him getting reelected was really scary to people. Like, was it that crazy to you to think that somebody just wanted to kill him? Not really. Like, not really. And you want to talk about the security, and we will get back to the article here, but like, you want to talk about the security? Listen, the Secret Service is not perfect. I know that like people like to, you know, I don't want to say pretend. Like, we are under the illusion that they are the most secure and most like capable form of security or like protective whatever that anybody can have in the world, the Secret Service. Like, these guys do not fuck around. Well, we learned so much about like the perimeters that were being set, right? And how it was like the immediate vicinity, like the 20-yard radius of where Donald Trump was, that was Secret Service. And then like right outside of that, there was a circle of like state police. And then outside of that circle was where you had like local law enforcement. And it was the local law enforcement that dropped the ball on the whole thing and allowed crooks to get up on that ladder and to get up on the building and blah, 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 blah. Didn't really have anything to do with the Secret Service. And we've learned so much about the communication, or rather the lack thereof, and how some messages just weren't conveyed. But there were local law enforcement who were trying to be like, hey, there's a motherfucker on the roof right now. Counter snipers were super late to this whole thing. Some conflicting reports in the last year about like how quickly they actually had Thomas Crooks in their sights. All that matters is, it depends on how you look at it, but like what matters is they did end up getting the guy, and Crooks did not get his guy. So let's get back to the story here before I get a little bit too crazy. This is a quote. "The most frustrating thing in the world for law enforcement is not getting an answer on what caused this," unquote, said one former FBI official who, like some others interviewed for this report, spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive matters. Quote, "We just can't quite say for certain, but that's where all the evidence points to," unquote. The case remains classified as open, but a current senior FBI official said no new leads are being actively mined. Absent anything new, there's not much to do, one official said. The lack of clear, definitive motive has spawned numerous conspiracy theories and led to suspicions among Trump supporters that the FBI was withholding information about the gunman, a registered Republican who also donated $15 to a Democratic organization and spent weeks planning an attack on the once and future Republican president. And then they start to go on a little bit, to talk about things that he did in school. He liked playing chess, and I don't know. He was getting straight A's in school and shit like that. But then they drop some really interesting information. Again, this is stuff that like we just don't know. In the year before the shooting, Crooks was trying to buy chemicals for homemade bombs. He had also searched the internet for information about a major depressive disorder. The investigation ran around the clock in the early weeks. With Ray, I believe, he's an FBI official. With Ray being briefed at all hours by his deputy director, Paul Abbott, and the chief of staff, Jonathan Lesner. It consumed FBI agents and analysts from half of the Bureau's field offices, nearly every headquarters division, and some international offices. Early on, in the hopes of tamping down baseless speculation, FBI leaders decided to share far more details about the probe than they typically would. I'm pushing back on that immediately. Bullshit. There's not that, again, and you know what? And what they're about to say is what the article says next is what I was about to say anyways, kind of. So I'll just read it and shut up. Within 2 weeks, the FBI had concluded over 450 interviews, including with witnesses, neighbors, classmates, teachers, and family members, and had served legal requests on 64 companies to obtain phone, email, gaming, and other accounts linked to crooks. By late August, 6 weeks after the shooting, agents had interviewed about 1,000 people. That's great. Well, it's the FBI. That makes sense. That's a lot of people, though. But it's also a huge body of government, I guess is what you would call body of security. By late August, 6 weeks after the shooting, agents had interviewed about 1,000 people, accessed Crooks' communications on 3 encrypted applications, and gained an understanding of his interests and obsessions as revealed through hundreds of his computer searches. Yet, in some respects, Crooks remained a cipher. I remember thinking, and this is a quote, "We have all of the tools and investigative power of the mighty United States trained on this 20-year-old kid, and we just don't know," said one former law enforcement official involved in the probe, That's kind of scary. That was another quote. That's kind of scary. That's what the people investigating this, even they were like, what the fuck is going on? We don't know anything about this guy. Why can't we figure out anything? There's going to be more information in this story. It's a dump, bro. It's an information dump. And I think this story really does do an interesting job of like, even if some of it I think is a little bit bullshit, I think it does paint a good picture of like mentally where some of us have been in the last year. Back to the story. Just before 11 p.m. on the night of the shooting, Matthew Crooks called 911 to report that his son had not been home for nearly 10 hours. So that's the kid's dad. After saying he was going to the shooting range. Federal agents from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, along with local police, were already stationed outside of the Crooks home in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, about 50 miles south of the Butler Fairgrounds, surveilling it and waiting for a warrant. ATF agents had been dispatched to the home at about 9:20 p.m. after determining that Matthew Crooks owned the rifle that was used in the shooting. But while agents were en route, investigators found that the driver's license picture for his son, Thomas Crooks, appeared to match the dead shooter. When the father called 911 for help, the agents changed their strategy and walked up to his front door, according to an account one gave to a House task force that investigated the attack. His dad opened the screen door and said instantly, "Is it true? Did Thomas shoot Trump?" "What makes you say that?" the agent asked. "The news called me," Crooks said, then invited them inside to conduct a sweep of his tidy brick home. Now, strap in. Inside, the ATF agents opened the door to Thomas Crooks' bedroom. He saw at the foot of the bed a .50 caliber military-grade ammunition can with a white wire coming out of it, which he suspected was a homemade bomb. He spotted a 1-gallon jug with a black label reading nitromethane, a volatile fuel, in an open closet. The agent ordered the house evacuated and summoned the county bomb squad. Close to midnight, agents began interviewing Thomas Crooks' parents. I'm going to break it right there for 2 seconds. The story doesn't talk about this. So here's one other thing that we know about his parents specifically. Dog, they don't leave the house. They don't leave the house. When they go to get groceries, they do it at 3 o'clock in the morning. What a weird reclusive family, as evidenced by not just what I said, but what I'm about to read. Agents asked Matthew Crooks' run-of-the-mill, they asked his dad run-in-the-mill questions. Names of his son's friends, if his son ever had a girlfriend, if he knew about his son's coworkers or workplace. The father said he didn't know anyone in his son's life and that he and his son didn't talk about friends or work. "No," this is a quote, "No, I don't know anything about my son," unquote, the agent recalled the father saying. That same night, prosecutors at the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Western District of Pennsylvania were busy opening a grand jury probe to gather as much evidence as possible about Crooks and his communications, even though he was dead and it wasn't clear that anyone would face charges. At about 2 a.m., prosecutors in the Pittsburgh-based office were drafting a search warrant for the Crooks' home, the first in a series of searches they would use to obtain the gunman's phones and laptops so they could better trace his activity in the weeks leading up to the shooting. From the earliest moments of the probe, investigators viewed the possibility of an Iran connection. So breaking it, we're fucking back to this. We're doing the Iran thing again. You're learning something here. You're really learning something here. Look, I don't know if the Washington Post, this is where I'm really putting my tinfoil hat on. I don't know if the Washington Post is like gearing up because it's very obvious that Israel is going to attack Iran again. And like the United States will just sort of have to do exactly what they did 3 weeks ago and just kind of join them. I don't really know if I believe that Trump wants war in Iran, but like he will definitely do it. You know what I mean? I just am getting really like, wow, you guys are planting some seeds about Iran and oh, they're trying to kill the president. Or it's true, right? And they're trying to get their lick back for damn, who's the guy that they fired the drone from fucking space? And before the guy even realized what happened, it exploded through his head. It was Soleimani, right? Oh, okay. So was he Iranian? Maybe I got that wrong. Okay, so maybe it is that. And what we're actually seeing here is insight to like Iranian panic inside of the United States government. I don't believe what happened a month ago, them bombing uranium and enrichment facilities, had anything to do about Iranian panic. I think that was just about making Israel happy, right? But it is interesting if they actually are fearful that there are, I don't know, like Iranians who are trying to recruit people to kill United States politicians. So there's just, you just really got to, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, don't bomb Iran. Leave them alone. That's not a war that any of us want. But there are some perspectives here. There are some narratives being spun here. So let's get back to it. I'll just restart from where I was. From the earliest moments in the probe, investigators viewed the possibility of an Iran connection as urgent to figure out. Tehran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had vowed revenge against Trump and his top advisors for the U.S. government's 2020 drone strike that killed General Soleimani in Baghdad. Right, okay, so Baghdad is in Iraq, isn't it? Baghdad? Yeah, that makes sense. I'm pretty sure Baghdad is in Iraq, not Iran. Yeah. Baghdad is in Iraq. So, okay, I was right then. So they're trying to get their lick back. So that's the narrative, true or not, that is being conveyed here. Back to the story. Senior government leaders brace for fallout if the FBI were to learn that Iran had orchestrated the hit. 3 administration officials said, quote, "It would mean war," unquote. Yeah, no, I mean, no shit. I mean, yeah, if you kill the president of the United States, you're going to get fucked up. No matter how funny it would have been for him to be like, and if you really want to see something that's sad and he gets his head blown off, you got to go to war after that. You just have to. Right or wrong, it's just sort of the principle of the thing. You can't kill the president and then people, well, you know, his, I guess he wasn't the president at the time. I was going to talk about his approval rating, but also I don't think approval rating is even fucking real. Who cares about that? He's still the president. He's not going to, the Dems are, the establishment Dems just sitting on their hands. And Al Green is like, oh, here's introducing some like articles of impeachment. And all the other fucking libs were like, nothing's going to come out of it, so we might as well not do it. Stand for something. How about that? You could do that, by the way. You could stand for fucking something. Let's go back to the story. Alarm that Iran may have been involved was heightened by the arrest. One day before the assassination attempt of Asif Merchant, the alleged Iranian operative accused of plotting to kill United States politicians. So this is the guy, Merchant is the guy who is being accused of recruiting Americans to kill politicians. Merchant, a Pakistani national, had boasted to an undercover FBI agent posing as a hitman that he was recruiting others like them, according to court documents. Merchant had told the undercover agents that he planned to leave the United States and would relay instructions to them about whom to kill and where after he was gone. Agents arrested him midday on Friday, July 12th. So this is, what, 2 days, a day or two before Trump almost got killed, in Houston, as he was loading his luggage to go to the airport. He has since pleaded not guilty. Before dawn on Sunday, July 14th, just hours after the Butler shooting, FBI agents were dispatched to Merchant's jail cell in Texas and took the extraordinary step of interviewing him without his lawyers to determine whether he knew crooks. According to one person briefed on the interview, citing a potential threat to public safety, they invoked special authority under the Justice Department's policy to question him while he was in custody and without some standard legal rights. According to 2 people familiar with the interview. So basically what they just said there, so let me just read that again. Citing a potential threat to public safety, they invoked special authority under Justice Department policy to question Merchant while he was in custody and without some standard legal rights. Did they fucking waterboard this guy? Is that the soft language that they used here? So they basically just said, fuck the rule. Now, in this instance, am I going to blame the FBI? Ethics question. If you believe that somebody was connected to an assassination attempt of the president of the United States, or former president of the United States, and who would a guy who was running for president again, do you kind of throw out the rule book and where is she? Where's Rachel? Style, like Batman style? It may not be ethically right, but I wouldn't blame any government for doing that because their job is sort of to investigate it, to protect that guy. So yeah, it's just funny. I think that's my take here. It's just fucking funny. That they definitely waterboarded the shit out of that guy. Let's get back to it. Agents continued questioning Merchant after he was formally charged with a murder for hire plot and transferred to a federal detention in Brooklyn. An FBI summary of a July 17th interview was leaked to Senator Chuck Grassley. He's a Republican from Iowa, who briefly posted about it online before the FBI asked that it be removed. The Washington Post... So basically, a guy, a United States senator, just like posted on Twitter about the FBI illegally interviewing a guy who may have been connected to this would-be assassination attempt. The FBI had to be like, delete that. What the fuck? What are you doing? Please delete that. But not before the Washington Post retrieved the summary, which is partially redacted from Internet Archives. According to the FBI document, Merchant said that he had agreed to help the Islamic Revolutionary Guard arrange to recruit hitmen and pay up to $1 million to kill American political figures. Though his Iranian handler had not said so outright, Merchant said that he inferred that the ultimate target was Donald Trump and that the plot was connected to Soleimani's death. Merchant said he reported back to his handler his assessment of Trump security after watching videos of a Trump rally. 30 security guards, 20 cameras, 4 to 5 areas where audience members had to be scanned for weapons. The Justice Department arranged to keep Merchant separated from other prisoners in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn to prevent him from communicating with anyone other than his attorney and guards who delivered his food, according to a person familiar with his detention. In a memo, months later, about the restrictions on Merchant, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco asserted that he was trained to use coded messages to arrange hits on high-profile political figures, and that quote, there is substantial risk that his communications or contacts with persons could result in death or serious bodily injury? Huh? So basically, they were... okay, you get what I'm... Okay, you heard what I said. She wrote that he, quote, could continue to pass valuable information regarding his efforts in the organization, in the organizing of the assassination scheme, unquote. Now, I'm going to try to just skim through the rest of it because essentially the rest of the article, of which if I continued to read it to you, we would be here for another 30 minutes. All they do is they continue to talk about the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, and they keep talking about, but they keep backtracking on that. But they're like, oh, it's Iran, but it's not Iran. It's Iran, oh, but actually it's not Iran. So they keep doing the Iran thing, and then they keep being like, but there's no evidence to suggest it, which is something that they eventually go on to say. There really isn't a ton of evidence to suggest, despite everything that I may have read, and it may seem like, well, it seems like the Washington Post's findings here and the FBI's findings here were that it was not the FBI. I'm sorry, Freudian slip, was that it was not Iran, right? And they talk a little bit more about Thomas Crooks having like nitro fucking methane in his in his house, which is like race car fuel. And this guy really wanted to build bombs. They talk a little bit about his Google history, which was, Doug, he was for real like Googling like how to build a bomb and like Googling like remote detonation and stuff like that. They didn't explicitly name Telegram here, but it was very clear that he was on Telegram and you know, other encrypted applications, like messengers. And so I mean, whoa, what a dump here. But then they also just eventually conclude, yeah, he just did this because he was like, I hate myself, and what if I was cool? How do I get cool? I'm going to try to kill the president in Butler, Pennsylvania. That's what I'm going to do. That's pretty, I don't know, man. I can't believe he missed. I'm not going to do the thing that people liked, that they did like a year ago where they're like, it's too bad that he did miss. I think that would have scarred a lot of, I don't know. I'm really trying to make a point here, and I'm kind of trying to dance around it, and I don't really know how to make it. I remember feeling in the moment that I realized that this was actually real. Whoa. I don't know. I just didn't want to see his head get blown off. I was like, he can go to jail forever. Now, that's fine with me, but I just didn't really want. It's kind of like when, you know what? This is exactly what it is. This is how I can make the point. XXX Tentacion was murdered in Miami. I remember I was leaving Hot Topic. I had worked like a 12-hour shift, and I was leaving for the day, and I get out of work. XXX Tentacion killed in Miami. Immediately, I was like, nice. But then I was like, whoa, no. I was like, bro, I wanted to see him go to jail. I didn't want to for like, strangling his pregnant girlfriend. But I didn't want to see him get brutally murdered outside of like a motorcycle shop. I think it's the same with Donald Trump, where it's like, yeah, I would just prefer that you were like under a jail, but not like dead under a jail, like just in like ADX Florence with like, who is that guy? Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the guy who did the Boston Marathon bombing. Put him in a cell with him. I know Ted Kaczynski's dead, but he was in ADX Florence too. That's a funny trio, the three of those guys in a cell together. I don't know. It just bothered me. But this kid was like, no, I'm going to kill his ass. I'm going to shoot him. He's a horrible shot. Which was one of the things that we had heard at the time was like, when you talk about like first or secondhand information about like people who went to school with him, is they were like, yeah, he was in the rifle club or he tried to join the rifle club, but he sucked at shooting and he couldn't do it. He wasn't a good shooter. As evidenced by the fact that he had, like, people love to do the thing. They love to do the thing where they're like, oh, well, obviously this was fake because Lee Harvey Oswald hit a moving target from like 6 stories up and like 500 yards away. I don't remember how far it was. I know it was not 500 yards, but like, and Thomas Crooks was like, I don't know, 150 yards away. And he got, before they started returning fire, before the counter snipers returned fire, he got off like 4 rounds. And he missed them. I do still believe, just as the, if I maybe I should put a bow on this, but I just have so much. I have so many more things I want to say. I think like I'm just never gonna be shaken from the idea that like, no, I do not believe that he was shot in the ear. That did not fucking happen. It did not happen. I also don't believe the people who are like, well, you don't think he popped a blood capsule? You don't think that was a ketchup packet? The guy did WWE. No. I still believe that one of his little glass teleprompters just got fragmented and one of those pieces of glass just like sliced his ear. I think that was real blood. And the reason that I believe that is like his reaction to it immediately when shots start ringing out, and he kind of like does a little bit, like he cocks his shoulders a little bit, he dips his head, and he immediately puts his hand to his ear. The quickness in which he moves, like he doesn't move that quick. Nobody really, I don't want to say nobody does. A guy his age does not just kind of like, and you're going to say, well, you would if you expected it. And no, I thought it was a very authentic reaction. And I also think that if it's just a shard of glass that kind of sliced his ear, that also would explain why there was 0 wound after the fact, because you just give that a few days and it'll heal, it'll be fine. Yeah, I think that was real blood. I think it was. The threat was real. The motherfuckers who think this was like wasn't a real thing, which is like the people who think it wasn't a real thing are like the real libs of the world. I'm like, dude, a guy for real got shot in the head and died. Wasn't he a firefighter? Or like actually died. And so this like staged event where you just like kill, and people are like, oh, well, the Secret Service people were like so bullshit and they were so like, they just like weren't good at their jobs. First of all, I don't think it's not 100% true. I mean, if you look at the footage, there were like 2 agents who like clearly had no idea what they were doing. But that also, I guess the explanation for that is because the Secret Service was spread so thin that day because Biden was doing an event and Kamala was doing an event and like I don't remember who else was doing it, but the Secret Service was like all over the country, and so I guess that Trump just kind of got the C team that day. Which, if you're like a MAGA head, you're going to look at and be like, yeah, they purposely gave him the C team because they knew some shit was going to pop off. And I'm like, yeah, but if they knew some shit was going to pop off, they would have done it knowing, well, how do I say this? No. How about that? No. That was a real kid who just like, and this was another thing that we heard at the time, which was like, I don't remember if somebody scrubbed his socials or something. I don't remember if that's where this came from or if this was just total conjecture and people were just making out. But I don't honestly remember this part of it. But I do remember this being a talking point, which was like the reason he was doing it, the reason that Crooks tried to kill Trump was because he was trying to rid the world of pedophiles. And that was his motivation. Now, the FBI's investigation doesn't seem to indicate that that's true. You could argue that it, if you're really sick, if you want to get really nasty, I don't really believe this, but it did just pop into my head, so it's worth saying. In light of what we've learned in the last week from the Department of Justice and also the FBI, if that was true, that Thomas Crooks was trying to quote unquote rid the world of pedophiles, and that's why he wanted to kill Trump, then it would make sense that the FBI does not conclude that as a motivation, given that the same body of intelligence, the FBI, well, and the Department of Justice, but that's not a body of fucking intelligence, just recently concluded that there's no list and that Trump has nothing to do with anything. Well, then, if that's true, then they would not also, you get what I'm saying here? If the FBI knows that they're going to come out with this report and the DOJ knows they're going to come out with this report, they're like, hey, victimless crime. We don't know what, there's no client list. There's nothing like that. Then you cannot at the same time say that Crooks tried to kill Trump because he wanted to rid the world of pedophiles, which the only reason that you would say that as it relates to Trump is if you believe that he would be implicated in these Epstein files. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Maybe this is a good time to do this also. And I think before I jump into it, we are going to do the Epstein stuff. Can we talk about something for a second? I've been really struggling with the Epstein thing for reasons that we will jump into, but for a reason that is tangentially related. I'm so confused as to like when we as a culture decided that content creators and comedians and podcasters are the ones that we seek political analysis from. And maybe I should have led the show with this after spending 40 fucking minutes talking about this Washington Post story. Sorry for that. But like, you get what I'm saying? Like, we're not looking for like Rachel Maddow. Nobody is, but like, we're not looking for Rachel Maddow to like talk us through the Epstein shit, or like Steve Kornacki to like talk us through election shit or something like that. Or like, I guess people do listen to Hannity and they listen to Laura Ingraham and they still listen to Tucker, and hell, even, I don't know, I've listened to Tucker a little bit in the last month, like when he's talking about the Epstein shit, or like we talked about when he had Robert O'Neill on the show. I thought that was interesting and I thought it was worth listening to, even if there were a lot of things that I didn't fucking believe at all. The Ted Cruz interview, like, I don't know, the last month, like, not in like a red-pilled way, but I have been checking in on like what Tucker is saying. But my point in this is, when you think about your favorite content creator, maybe if they're on NBA YouTube, they're not like really getting into it. I don't, how do I communicate this point? I just like Tim Dillon, I think, is a good example of this. We're like, that's just a guy who's a comedian and he's gay and he's funny. And that's like his whole deal. He's like, I'm gay and it's funny. That's like his whole deal, right? Not really, but like, you know what I mean if you listen to Tim Dillon. It's like listening to and I think the reason that this may be just coming to me in real time as I'm asking the question is maybe it's just because the reason that we do that is it's more refreshing to hear perspectives from people who are sort of in the same position as us, and they're not being like, I don't want to call it like independent media, but this also goes back to what we were talking about with like the Kennedy assassination, where like the avenues of information that you were able to consume 60 plus years ago, it's a completely different landscape. It's an entirely different universe. It's not even kind of the same thing, right? You're not turning on the 6 o'clock news to figure out what's happening in the world today. You're watching it happen in real time. You're watching the IDF place these opioid-infused bags of flour in the hands of Palestinians, forcing like a mad dash, and then you see tanks firing into a crowd of people just trying to get a bag of flour. You're seeing that 2 minutes after it happens in real time. You know what I mean? And like, if you don't want to see that, then you don't have to see it. You don't have to go out of your way to see it. You can block all that shit off. Like, you can have blinders on anything that you want, and I don't know. I guess maybe people are just like, it sometimes makes me feel dumb. The Epstein shit specifically, the whole spiel that I'm about to do, I've really contemplated like whether it's even worth doing it, because sometimes I just wonder how much of the internet has just become like, if you don't have a take, if you don't have an opinion, you don't have a voice, and like you don't quote unquote matter. And so everybody, rather nobody can help but impose their own beliefs on everybody else. Now, it's not the same thing with the Epstein thing. This is not, well, actually it is. It is binary. It is black and white. Either you're fucking wrong or you're like everybody else, right? And right now, everybody is like everybody else, unless you're like super hardcore coping, and those people certainly do exist. I would direct them to this show. It's a good show for people who need to cope. But not really. This isn't that. This isn't really the segment where if you're like, well, if the list doesn't exist, then it doesn't exist. No, but I don't. Maybe I'm going nowhere and I'm spinning the tires and I'm fucking talking about nothing. So I don't really know where to start with this thing. Look, it's the Coping Hour. We cover all the biggest stories. We cover them from all angles. Have you seen this? Have you heard about this? About a week ago, word to Bobby Shmurda, the United States Department of Justice, in conjunction with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, concluded that Jeffrey Epstein had no client list. There was none, and that he did not get murdered, and that he did, in fact, kill himself. Now, it was not just these two things that floored people. It was the fact that they released, I don't know, like 10 hours of footage from the cell, not the block, but the, how would you phrase this? I guess it technically would be the cell block, but not like the wing that Jeffrey Epstein was stored in. Look, as a motherfucker who poured through the 1,000 pages of the hashtag JFK Files that got released, like, I don't know, earlier this year. For real, I read like 85% of those. And I will get back to the Epstein stuff, but I think that the context of the JFK Files, I do think matters here. The principle of Trump saying, I'm going to release these JFK Files. People are very curious. People are very interested, and people want to get to the bottom of this, and they deserve to know what happens. And so, like every president has done for the last, like 20 years, they release like a little bit of information. Some of it has been redacted. Some of it, like, we kind of already knew at this point. If you read the JFK Files that got released this year, you are not going to learn anything new about the assassination, right? Like, you see so many YouTubers who put out these 45-minute videos about, like, oh, the things that you can't believe from these JFK Files, with like these super snappy thumbnails and clickbaity titles. I'm going to save you the fucking time, brother, because there's nothing, right? Like, if you are actually somebody who has I don't want to say looked into it, like you did some fucking independent investigation, but like if you just like look at the information that has been public for the last 60 years, or has been made public and unclassified over the last 60 years, they just kind of repeat stuff, and we didn't actually learn anything. You do learn things from those files, but it has nothing to do with the assassination itself. The things that you learn are like more details about how truly terrified America was of Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and then by extension, super scared of Russia because the Russians were arming the Cubans, right? And so right on our doorstep, like, I don't know, 100 miles, 100 plus miles, I don't know what the distance is, away from fucking Key West, there are like nuclear warheads. And so you have the American government. You see these like memorandums that are placed on the desk of Lyndon Baines Johnson, or on the desk of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And they're like, we need to watch out for these guys. They were really, really scared, right? And so in conjunction with this Red Scare, it was a huge deal, and it's really interesting to see like the direct communication from the Central Intelligence Agency on the desk of the President of the United States, just how scared that they were. You also learn about like clandestine operations that they were running in Eastern Europe or in Southeast Asia during Vietnam. You learn about psychological operations that they were trying to run in both of those regions, or even in South America. You learn about the relationships that they were trying to build or maintain with Mexico during LBJ's tenure specifically. And so, like, you do learn stuff, but it has nothing to do with the Kennedy assassination. So now to bring this back to the Epstein shit. Okay, this footage gets released, and the one thing that everybody was focusing on was at 11, as soon as it goes from 11:58:59, it skips to midnight. So there's an entire minute that has just been erased from this thing. My original thought was, yeah, like, this is why I brought up the Kennedy shit. Like, I don't think that this video would be released in lieu of the conclusion that, yeah, he didn't kill himself. I'm sorry, rather, he did kill himself, and there's no client list. Why then would the Department of Justice or the FBI release this video that shows that nothing is actually going on? Like, do you think that they released this video after saying that nothing crazy actually happened just to be like, but let's see if people can pick up on the clues? You know what I mean? That doesn't make any goddamn sense. So my original thought on the whole thing was like, that 1 minute skip, yeah, dog, it's from 11:59 to midnight. I'm sure these cameras have to like back the footage up to servers or something like that, and there's some sort of a soft reset that happens. But since we've learned, there are some reports out there that they have actually altered the footage, and so it's just a little bit, that part of it I've just been confused about. I'm burying the entire lead. I am burying the entire lead on this thing. I've spent the last, 5-10 minutes talking, well, not 10, I was talking about JFK 10 minutes ago. I spent the last 5 minutes talking about this footage that got released. That, in and of itself, is a massive and insulting contradiction to what we were told almost 6 years ago when this guy died. When Jeffrey Epstein was killed, similar to what I always talk about on the show about the Osama bin Laden operation in Pakistan, there are pieces of that story that I refuse to ever be gaslit about, and when they try to change the narrative, I get really offended because I'm like, I lived through that shit, we all lived through that shit, don't fucking lie to me, okay? They're lying. Again, when Epstein died, the narrative that was spun was there were no guards, or the guards were asleep, like literally Looney Tunes style. These correctional officers were asleep at the wheel, like honk shoo, me, with their keys fucking dangling off of their belt. They also told us there was no footage. Point blank period, there was no footage. Where did this come from? Where did this, I again, refuse, capital R, bolded, italicized, underline, fuse, to be told that, we never denied that there was footage. Yes, you fucking did. And that's why people, well, it's not the exclusive reason why, but that's one of the reasons why people immediately were calling bullshit on this whole thing, right? So, all right, so they released this footage and it's in like 144p. The quality is abysmal and you can hardly tell anything that's happening at all. Talking to us about like nobody was around. The reports, this investigation suggests that like nobody was really around and nobody was doing checks. Dude, what you can tell from the videos is that like correctional officers were walking around. I guess we don't like technically know what they were doing, but like, I don't, they're fucking lying. They're absolutely lying. And so there's this whole like, I don't know. Why didn't Biden release this if he knew? He fucking should have. He should have. He should have, dog. I do not believe in my life that there has been or ever will be a more insulting lie, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I'm offended. The most insulting lie that the United States government has told its citizens to our faces in over 60 years since the Kennedy assassination. You talk about distrust of the government building over the last 60 years. I think Kennedy assassination was honestly like that was a breaking point for some people, right? But it wasn't because there was no internet. Like there was just people who were kind of like, oh, that was kind of a weird thing. And 90% of the country, 95% of the country even, was in mourning. It was a horrific tragedy. It still is to this day that Kennedy was killed. There's really no like pro-killing Kennedy argument that could be made, right? And so I don't know whether it was the Kennedy assassination or whether it was just being in Vietnam, where you talk about like the 30 years that the United States spent funding militant groups or funding revolutionary groups or being directly involved in a war in the Middle East. Like people don't trust the government in the United States, right? And so when something like this happens, what's interesting is you start to see the MAGA cracks start to show. Here it is. You know, what was it, a month or two ago, you had Trump versus Elon, and the libs of the world were like, ooh, this is where MAGA's going to they got to pick a side. It's a MAGA civil war. Everybody picked Trump. They all picked Trump. Yes, some of them picked Elon, but like, no, not really. The people who picked Elon they cared about Elon more than they cared about Trump originally. So it's like nobody's minds were changed from that whole thing. It wasn't really a civil war, right? The secondary part of this was the big, beautiful bill. Yeah, there was definitely a lot of feathers that were ruffled from like the MAGA crowd where they're like, wait a minute, I got tricked. What the fuck? I can't go to the hospital. I'm going to lose health care. What the fuck? You didn't say this was going to happen if I voted for you. Yeah, that's why he's the greatest con man that's literally ever lived ever, right? Both of those things, though, like, no. The reason that I think this is the true, like, fucking got him, is because foundationally, what MAGA has been since its inception, like 10 damn years ago, is like this dismantling of the deep state, right? And this is the certified, the deep state strikes back moment. And it's because of a guy like Donald Trump that this shit is completely going away. Like, this is what happens when Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, is like doing Rogan and like, dog, he would be doing Rogan even if he wasn't the director of the fucking FBI, son. He was a conspirator podcaster before he got this job. Like, when you hire people who aren't qualified to do this shit and they're your fucking boys, they're your fucking cronies, like, this is just kind of what's going to happen. You know what I mean? And so, like, I don't know. I look at this and I see, sorry, I forgot where I was going with that. But I look at this, you got Attorney General Pam Bondi next to Marco Rubio, who's sitting next to Donald Trump. You get a reporter who's like, hey, what the fuck happened? What is this? Oh, I was talking about the cracks, and we'll get back to that in a second. And Pam Bondi, so they're talking about the Epstein thing. Is a reporter asking a question, and Pam Bondi's like, well, you know, and Trump immediately cuts her off. Excuse me, are you still talking about this Epstein guy? Are you still talking about this Epstein creep? You guys got to get a life. Seriously, you're still fucking talking about this guy? Listen, if you care about this story at all, you've seen the fucking clip. There has never been a moment in this guy's, this is a second term. I don't say 2 terms, but for lack of better phrasing, in this guy's 2 terms where he's been like more guilty. And I say that as somebody who, we all remember when right before the 2016 election, that raw audio came out of Trump saying that he would like just grope women and not really care about it. And grandma, plug your ears for a second. But like the phrase that he used was like, just grab him by the pussy. Who cares? Dog, that guy won the election like a month later. He won the election like a month later because the fucking, the district attorney, the fucking, whoever what's the guy's name? I don't remember what was it? Not Michael Cohen. It wasn't the FBI. Someone held onto the WikiLeaks shit, and then and as soon as the moment was right for them to release these the Hillary Clinton's secret email server, that's what put Trump over the edge. People did not care about the tape that came out about him saying that shit. So let me just reverse for a second and go back to like the cracks starting to show. Dog, foundationally, this is what MAGA has been. 1 year ago, right now, Donald Trump Jr. was campaigning for his dad, talking about like, release the client list. We got to release this client list. They are naming it explicitly, the Epstein client list, right? And so when you make that your whole thing, and it's about like taking out the pedophiles and taking out the bad guys, and then like, you know, how does the expression go? Your chickens come home to roost or some bullshit like that, and now it's actually time to nut up or shut up. Whoops. Record scratch freeze frame. You're probably wondering how they got here. Probably on like Epstein's plane. Probably on his plane. My favorite thing that I've seen for the select few. I mean, Alex Jones. Trump is losing Alex Jones, bro. He's like sitting in his car talking about like, how do you do an Alex Jones impression? Let me workshop it real quick on the fly. I'm sitting here. I'm sitting in the car, and I only throw up about once a year. I'm about to fucking throw up. I'm so stressed out right now. And it's like you see him go back and forth from like, no way Trump did this to like, how are they doing this to Trump? There's no way Trump did this. But like, no way Trump did this in the sense of like, how could he do this to us? To like, oh, it's because they're setting him up. No, how could he do this to us? No, they're setting him up. Guy was losing his fucking mind. Roseanne Barr on Twitter being like, you say who cares about this shit, Donald Trump? People care about who are pedophiles and who are not. You know what I mean? Shit like that. So I don't know, like what's really gonna come out of this? Well, the damn, what's his title in the FBI? I don't remember his last name begins with a B. Shit, I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head right now. He's been like threatening to resign because the backlash from this and the flack that the FBI is getting is just so insane. But one of my favorite things that I've seen people talk about, the very small group of people who are like, no, this is okay. Well, I guess he killed himself, and I guess this client list doesn't exist. Is they're like, oh, so you're telling me that these guys, because it's not just, by the way, motherfuckers, I swear to God, if one more person is like, it's Elon and it's Trump and like, that's it. Oh, it's Bill Clinton and like, that's it. Yeah, man, like it's the dudes who pull strings, like the public facing ones that you know, but it's also like Harvard professors and like MIT scientists and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like this goes so deep, and that's who this lie is for, by the way. It's not for us, obviously. It's not for anybody other than the people who would be directly implicated in this, where it's like these are world governments. This is you would assume the United States working in conjunction with Israel and the Mossad to be like, we will do anything to protect you guys because the world will fall into absolute anarchy. If people find out about this someday. And I keep jumping around to so many points that I don't even remember what I was just going to say a second ago, right? But insulted, I think, is the only way to explain this. So by the way, so then people are, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General for the DOJ, she the interview people are, they love to reference the last like week is she was on Fox News in like February talking about the client list is on my desk. Her explanation for that interview, she did comment on it. She was like, well, I said it was on my desk in the sense that I had to review if it was like actually a thing or not. Right. Oh, that's actually what I was going to say. Nice. If I just keep talking, I find myself back to points that I wasn't, that I talked myself out of, and I started talking about something else. So the people who are coping and they're like, well, why would they, if they're committing all these crimes, like why would they document it and why would they keep a list of all of the people who would be complicit in these crimes? That to me is like it's so ignorant, and it completely erases like the idea of like what Jeffrey Epstein was actually doing. We know for a fact that guy was working in intelligence, right? We know for a fact he was working for the Mossad. We're pretty sure he was working also with the CIA. Dog, this was a honeypot operation. That's what this was. This was not like, hey, other people of the world who pull the strings and you guys want to have sex with kids. That's not what, like, just because we're powerful and we can. I mean, maybe that's some of it. No, dog, it was about Israel and the Israeli and the United States intelligence agencies like getting the world's most powerful and influential people in super compromising situations with like photographic and video evidence, right? There are names, there are dates, there are places, there are times. This shit went on for like 20, 30 fucking years, bro. And so for this government to look us in the face and be like, you're all insane, despite the fact that even if it's only 10% of what got Trump reelected, it was still a piece of the pie, right? And so, like again, this idea that you're dismantling the deep state, bro, look in the mirror, because it's literally, we take off the Scooby-Doo mask of Trump talking about the deep state. Let's reveal who the deep state was this whole time. It's motherfucking Donald Trump, bro. I you know what's crazy? So I'm not going to lie. I don't know if you can hear that outside. There's no way you can't hear that. I got scared for a second because I'm talking about this and the way this entire episode has gone. And all of a sudden I hear like pop, pop, pop. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening. That'd be crazy. Imagine that is what's the joke here that because I talked about Donald Trump potentially being implicated in the Epstein files that I'm going to get shot in the comfort of my own home? I hope not. That would be such bullshit. I'd be so mad. I'd be so pissed. So, okay, so maybe let's say this, right? Okay, so first of all, why is Ghislaine Maxwell still in jail? Why is she in jail? Free Ghislaine Maxwell, by the way. She's a political prisoner. Look, if there was no list, if thousands, 1,000 to 2,000 underage women were sexually abused and assaulted, but nobody did it, why is Ghislaine Maxwell in jail? She was convicted on 5 counts of like assisting Jeffrey Epstein in the trafficking and abuse of underage women. Oh, okay, so wait, are they acknowledging that the abuse and the trafficking still happened? But they're just not acknowledging who did it outside of Ghislaine Maxwell. Political prisoner. Free her. Free her. Fuck it. At this point, why not? Jeffrey Epstein, political prisoner. So then why then did a billionaire, one of the richest men in America, if not the entire world at the time of his death, was locked in a maximum security prison in Brooklyn, was expecting to have a hearing within the coming days of him getting killed or killing himself. What did he kill himself for then? He's just not interested in being in jail? Dog, he had served time before. He got like a 13-month sweetheart deal where he got to pick the jail and he got to be out on weekends. He still did time 5 days a week, though. Jeffrey Epstein is scared of jail. This investigation that the DOJ released alluded to the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was fearful of his life. The way that they phrased it was that a quote from him was like, "They're trying really hard to protect me." And it was like, they being like the COs, the correctional officers. We also learned this motherfucker, when was the timeline on it? Within the last month before he got killed, made a phone call, unsupervised. The CO was like, whatever, because Epstein said he wanted to call his mom. What was this, 2019? His mom died in 2004. Death certificate, 2004. Fuck you mean you're calling your mom, bro? So the CO was like, you're just calling his mom, like whatever. Unsupervised phone call from a New York area code. They later traced the call. It was coming from Belarus. So the call came from Belarus, was patched through a New York area code, and that's who Epstein was talking to. The language he was using while he was talking was he kept saying like she and her or whatever the fuck. So it seemed like to whoever may be listening, he was talking to a woman, but his mom was dead. She'd been dead for 15 years. Who the fuck was he talking to? Fucking Yevgeny Prigozhin? Who was that? Who was that then? Who was that? I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm upset. I'm really upset about this. It's really disappointing. It's very insulting. I think it's just a complete slap in the face to the intelligence of the American people. I think that when two of the most powerful and influential intelligence apparatus in the entire world between the CIA and the Mossad are working together, fuck. That's not Kobe and Shaq, bro. That's not LeBron and D Wade. That's not like Steph and Clay. That's like all of them combined, plus like Scotty and MJ, plus like if Bill Russell and Wilt ever played on a team. All of those guys combined, they're putting like 1,000 points, 657 rebounds a game on your fucking head. On 90% efficiency. The 10% is bullshit like this, right? It's bullshit like the Kennedy shit. What's crazy is like I talk about, it's the boldest, most direct lie that the government has told us to our faces in 60 years. I don't want to be like the imagine what they're not telling you guy here, but you know what I mean? I mean, this clearly got out of hand. So what's the assumption then? So who killed Epstein? Clearly it was somebody in a cell nearby. The videos are so dumb. I'm disgusted that they released these videos. The audacity of the Department of Justice to release this fucking video after telling us that it didn't exist is so insulting to me. There's no other way to frame it. It's disgusting. You know, I don't know how to, this is such a weird episode. I don't know how to end this one. That's going to be it. Why don't we just end it there? We talked about two things today. Whoops. Spotify listeners, I don't even know, bro. I'm not in coping hour mode right now. I'm upset about shit happening in my personal life right now mode. And I took it out on and motherfuckers are blowing off fireworks. I got a 14-month-old trying to sleep in the other room. Spotify, I got nothing. I'm sorry, bro. I don't know. I do love you guys a lot, though. Spotify, you guys have been great. We're so close to 500 ratings on Spotify. I'm not going to tell you to go over there and leave 5 stars. I would prefer that you did. I don't care. Leave whatever rating you want. But we're really close to 500 on Spotify. I would love it if we could get there by the end of the month, which surely we will, especially now that I'm doing a call to action for it. So Spotify listeners or people who don't listen on Spotify, but you want to go over to Spotify and give it a nice little rating, we would appreciate that. Apple Podcasts. What's up? What's up? Sorry for not reading anybody's emails today. None of them. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, nice little comment for the algorithm. Make sure to keep primary control in check. And I will catch you guys in the next one.